Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are talking about Indiana Jones 5 once again. And before we delve into it, I just want to make it very clear that this is probably going to be my last video on Indiana Jones 5 at this point. Unless if some real earth-shattering news comes out tomorrow or a month from now or a month or two from now, I'm done talking about Indiana Jones 5. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. I don't want to pull a Phantom Menace and basically make 50 videos on the same frickin' topic. But today's topic, what I want to focus on is what I think the biggest issue going into Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is. Now, a lot of people will decry, oh, it's the woke agenda, and they want to erase Indiana Jones from history and replace him with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. While, yes, you could argue that the agenda is problematic, there's actually a bigger issue that's at play where, agenda be damned. And the bigger issue at play is the idea of the suspension of disbelief, or the willing suspension of disbelief. Now, I believe that 95% of you guys know what the suspension of disbelief is, but just for the one or two people that don't know what it is, I'm pulling this article from Backstage.com. I'm not going to read it word for word. We're only going to read a couple of paragraphs. And the article is titled, How to Make Audiences Suspend Their Disbelief, written on November 30th of 2022. Again, we're not reading the whole thing. We're just reading a couple paragraphs of it. Whoops, scrolled a little too far. Here we go. Whether it's as fantastical as the alien realm of Avatar or as naturalistic as the rip from the headline stories of Law & Order SVU, part of movie, TV, and theater magic is the willing suspension of disbelief. Audiences must be able to believe in the faux reality of the world being presented to them in fictional works. Suspension of disbelief requires an unspoken agreement between creators, performers, and audiences. The creator crafts a world with consistent logic, the actors perform with verisimilitude, and the audience accepts the narrative taking place within that world. Here we go. Of course, audiences can only become immersed in movie magic when they don't feel compelled to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Quote, the audience is never required to bring suspension of disbelief with them to a movie, writes Roger Ebert. It is the filmmaker's job to create it, to drag it kicking and screaming from the clenched fist of the viewer's reason. It is an involuntary response, or lack of response, created when questioning certain details is made impossible by the distraction of the mind. The onus of suspended disbelief lies with those involved in the creation of a fictional work. Only then can the audience take up their part of the bargain. So now, let's take a look at an example of a moment from the Fast and Furious franchise when even Fast and Furious fans were saying, okay, this is now taking it way too far.
No, Dom.
Yes, that was from the more recent Fast and Furious. As of the recording of this video, Fast and Furious 9, when Dominic goes speeding off the cliff and does the cliff rope rappel, that, it completely goes against every single law of physics known to man. And at that was the point where the audience was like, that's it, this is way too ridiculous for its own good. There was even a moment in the James Bond franchise, Die Another Day, where where fans were saying that this was taking it too far. Now, in my opinion, the difference between between Fast and Furious 9 and Die Another Day is that with Die Another Day, the reason why the suspension of disbelief was broken was because CGI was still in its infancy, right? The CGI wave that James Bond is riding on with the parachute, yeah, looks way too cartoony, but again, I chalk that up to the fact that CGI was still in its infancy. It's not the fact that James Bond was surfing, because the beginning of the movie already established that that James Bond can surf. It's the fact that the wave itself just looked insanely cartoonish. Whereas, you know, in Fast and Furious 9, it was a series that originally started out following illegal street racing, but now they're like super spies and defying the laws of physics, and then even going so far as to launch a car into space. If I can find that clip from Fast and Furious 9, I'm going to put it in right here. If I can't, you're just going to continue to hear me to talk. Right. So what's the issue? What's the issue with suspending disbelief for an audience going into Indiana Jones 5? It's actually quite simple. Harrison Ford is now an 80-year-old man doing an action-heavy movie. Okay, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with Indiana Jones 4, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They were already pushing it, and I cannot find these articles to save my life, and I do apologize for that. Otherwise, I would splash them up on the screen. But I remember articles being written back in 2003, 2004, when it was announced that Indiana Jones 4 was going into production. There were a lot of articles at the time, you know, coming out and saying, can Harrison Ford even do another Indiana Jones movie? Because my God, he's a 60, 62-year-old man at this point. Well, we're now, 18 years, 2022, we're 18 years removed from that, so now it's, my God, Harrison Ford's an 80-year-old man, and he's still going to be running around playing Indiana Jones like he did in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Like, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, for better or for worse, worked as an old man Indiana Jones movie, but now that he's basically 80 years old, how many people are going to basically be sitting there and just going, yeah, right. Again, it's easy to point to agenda and get woke, go broke with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but even if that wasn't present, the fact that Harrison Ford is an 80-year-old man is still there. Why they didn't just recast the role and set it in like the 1940s, or bring back Harrison Ford, but bring him back as old man Indiana Jones with the eye patch, you know, from Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and have him recall an adventure from the height of World War II, and use that to introduce the new actor, and then you use that new actor from that point on. But I'm also ignoring the fact that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as well, this is the other hurdle that Indiana Jones 5 has to cross, is that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was effectively an ending. So was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, to be fair, where they're literally riding off into the sunset at the end. But if you look at Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, what happened at the end of that movie? Indiana Jones gets married to Marion Ravenwood, and they already teased Mutt Williams, his Indy's son, will take up the mantle of Indiana Jones, effectively turning Indiana Jones more into the Phantom. Now, obviously, that's not happening this time around. But the fact that you already had an ending and you teased another actor who was going to take over the role, that's yet another hurdle that you have to cross and go with the audience thinking, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny even necessary, or would it have been better if it was just never made at all, right? With the fact that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull brought about a de facto ending, and the fact that Harrison Ford is now an 80-year-old man, how many members of the audience are gonna be watching are going to be watching this movie and going, huh, yeah, right, an 80-year-old man is going to be swinging around on a whip as if he were still like 40, 45 years old. I highly fucking doubt it. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this video right here before I drag this out way longer than it needs to be. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos, so I will just see you guys next time.